We are going to have some fun today because we are getting connected with Annie F. Downs. Listen, I love this lady. She has 8 books to her name now. She has a podcast. She speaks all over the United States. I mean, truly, she is doing it all. And she's having fun while she's doing it. Her podcast is called That Sounds Fun, and she just released the book that goes along with it. We're going to dive in and find out what it means to really seek out fun, and why are we always chasing it. All right, let's have some fun with Annie F. Downs. I'm just excited because she's here with us. It's Annie F. Downs. Look at this book. Look at this book. This is your book, friend.
I know. Thanks, Kelly.
How many? How many is this?
I think this is number 8. I should probably count. I think it's 8. Yeah.
8.
Holy
cow. Okay, back
I talk too much, Kelly. You know, I just have too many words.
No, you don't. Never. Never. Listen, I don't know how much time they've allotted us today, but we're about to go over it because there's so much to dig in here, right here. With this, now I've been listening to the podcast. That sounds fun. Back up. I want everybody to know when you launched the podcast, how long have you been doing it, and how that all ties in with the book?
Yeah. So the podcast started in 2014. A friend of mine asked me if I would interview this novelist, Ted Dekker, who I loved his work and still do. And I was like, yeah, sure. At the time I had a blog, I had Twitter, I think I had Instagram. And I said, sure, I'd love to do an interview. Where would you like to release it? And they were like, can you release it? And I was like, on my blog, what do you want? And the girl said, well, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? And I, hand to heaven, Kelly, I said, that sounds fun. So then I went home and I looked it up and I was like, that sounds fun. Okay, that sounds fun. I'll go with it. And so that's really how the podcast started. And I just started interviewing my friends and having conversations with people that I thought were really interesting. And at the end of every show, just to be kind of like kitschy as much as anything, I started asking, because the show's called That Sounds Fun, what sounds fun to you? And people started answering. And we're 400 plus episodes deep now over the last 6, almost 7 years. And what started happening is, as I was having these conversations with guests and listeners were coming along with us, we were talking about fun every episode, and we release every Monday and Thursday. And so then people were going, hey, I want to tell you what I do for fun, Annie, or I'm not the fun mom, or I don't talk a lot about fun. And suddenly I realized, oh, there's something else here. There's more to this than just that little fun 3-letter word that everybody says a lot. And so I went on a journey of figuring out, why does this matter? And why do people want to talk about it, but they don't do it without some pushing? Right. And that's how we got the book.
Well, and my question to you, first off, what is your definition of fun? Because that's what's interesting. In my head, I'm like, oh, everybody knows what fun means. But then when I start reading your book, I'm like, oh gosh, I hadn't thought about it in those terms. I hadn't thought about it as being safe or feeling secure or feeling at home. Those are all things that I never associated with the word fun.
Yeah. So when we talk about the definition of fun, the actual answer is, it doesn't matter how I define fun, because everyone's going to define fun a little bit differently. But you're right. There are some core things that we can all agree play into that feeling that we recognize as, man, that was so fun. And when you think through if we had time and could sit down with everybody who's joining us and say, okay, tell me 3 things that you did in the last 2 years. We won't even do 1 year because pandemic. In the last 2 years, what are 3 things you did that were fun? And some things you're going to find that all 3 of them include is they almost always include other people. They very often include being outside, and not all of them, but a lot of them do. And a lot of times you're going to see that the way you define fun, the things you've decided are fun, connect with a really core thing about your childhood and about how you grew up, and about ways that you're still connecting with parts of yourself that are 5, 6, 7 years old. And so those, to me, while we will all define it differently, because I was talking to someone yesterday who loves golf, and I was like, not my fun. That could be your fun. Go for it. Not my fun. we're not all going to define it the same, but we are all going to see some similar descriptors when we think about it.
You know, when you were describing being at home, being at your grandparents and
Yeah.
snapping beans with your grandma, honey, same. Grew up, my grandparents had a farm. When you said those words, it took me back exactly to that moment, sitting there snapping beans. She had a breezeway in between the house and the garage, and that's where we would snap our beans. And I thought about that. It really does take you back to a place when things were easy, when things were simple, when you didn't have those worries and those cares. So how do people start to really chase that and maybe find those feelings again? Because it is something that I think there was a sacred point in time where hopefully everybody had a sacred point in time where they felt safe and they were having fun. How do you go about recreating that?
Yeah, I think part of it is calling it that and going like, my whole childhood was not perfect. Everybody's childhood has ups and downs, highs and lows, but there are probably a sacred moment or two in there. And it's asking yourself why, Kelly. It's going like, okay, if I think back to how much I loved to ride my bike when I was little. And so if you and I are sitting there and I'm like fun coaching you, and you say, I loved to ride my bike when I was little, just like I did, then the next question is why? I loved getting out. I loved being free. I loved going fast. And some of those things, the heart pull that happens when it comes to fun is going like, I can't have that whole life back. I can't sit with my grandmother. She's passed away. I can't go to that house where my family is because my family doesn't live there anymore. I can't actually be 5 or 6 or 7 again. I'm 40, so it is. This is the future. I only go up in numbers.
You're 35, right? 35 and holding.
I wasn't as good at being Annie at 35 as I am at 40, so I'll take 40. I've gotten better, so I'll take it. But you can't go back and be that person, but you can bring these little moments up to today. And that's really the core of what we're looking for. When we're looking for fun, you are either looking to feel at home and feel safe and reconnect with simplicity, or if you're having an unhealthy moment, you're trying to escape and you're leaning into escapism. And we need to know what we're doing. Now, I'm not anti-escapism. I think sometimes, and I write about it, and that sounds fun, there are times where you need to go to the movies and not think about anything and just like turn your phone off and have 2 hours. What isn't as healthy is sitting in your house for 3 weeks and not communicating with anyone because you're sad, right? So there's a balance of like, I need to escape for a minute, but we can't live as escape artists. We have to live as humans who feel pain and joy. And so identifying like what is escaping and what is actually like that simple, beautiful fun that we actually love, and finding our way toward that.
You mentioned some of my favorite places in this book. You hit all of the Mount Rushmore for me. You got Disneyland, you got Dollywood, you got the Ryman, you got some really good spots in this book. How is it that you associate more with a place than necessarily with a space and time or with a person? Because when you said that, it really did make me think. When I was reading this, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? You're right. I do put a lot of emphasis on memories that I had at a certain place, at a certain house, at a certain venue. So why do you think that is? Why is there the association with a building?
I don't, my counselor and I worked through that. I don't totally know. I think part of it is that my parents lived in the same house my whole life. So I remember getting to college and my roommate had this piece of art her family had made her with a picture of every door of the house they'd lived in. And I thought, I only have one door. That would be the most boring thing. So maybe it's that I was kind of raised in a world where your place was your place. And so I always connected with places. But I also think when you go back and watch the movies in your mind of the memories of things you've lived, you can almost always put it in the right place. You may not be able to have all the right people there. You may, I forgot my aunt was there, and I forgot what we ate, but I can tell you that we were at under the pavilion. I think that where things happen is just a little easier to remember. And so for me, I connect really deeply with places, and living in Nashville for the last 13 years has filled this town with places that I feel so deeply connected to.
One of the things that you mentioned in the book is the Ryman Auditorium, which is near and dear to my heart as well. There are so many amazing spots. So, what is it about the Ryman? And give me some other spots around downtown Nashville that you really love.
Okay, so what is it about the Ryman? What isn't it about the Ryman, right? Like, I remember very clearly being a kid and watching the Grand Ole Opry with my grandmother and seeing the Ryman from Georgia, on TV while she was making biscuits. I mean, I can tell you where I was in the kitchen. And then to grow up and to move here and start having my own experiences in the Ryman. I mean, a lot of people know the history of it, but it was built because of what supernatural God things going on in Nashville. And so I think I always feel that. I always feel this bigger connection that there's history in this room. Some of my favorite concerts from from Stephen Curtis Chapman to Mumford and Sons to Drew Holcomb to Lizzo have all been at the Ryman, and just I loved. I mean, I'll never forget seeing Trisha Yearwood on the front row of Lizzo concert at the Ryman, just singing every word, and I was like, I can finish it. This could be my last Ryman because of what I just saw. I just saw Trisha Yearwood having the best time at a Lizzo concert at the Ryman. But when I think about the rest of downtown Nashville, I mean, I just love going to places that have long been there. I love the Country Music Hall of Fame and the way they turn over there. The things they feature is so fun. I like Greenbrier Distillery. I like what Bellmead Bourbon is doing and the way they're bringing back an old recipe. I think that's really cool. I love the farmers market on Rosa Parks. I just think it's neat to go and see all these international flavors that our town has attracted and love. What else do I love? I love Lady Bird Taco. That's my favorite place to eat right now is Lady Bird Taco over in 12 South. I mean, I could just go on and on. I mean, I am a super fan of our town, and I like unabashedly a super fan. And so you just can't go wrong hanging out in Nashville.
So I love the idea of a That Sounds Fun walking tour where you list all the things that you just said, all the things that you love, and people can come to town, and maybe you even do the audio companion.
Audio, that's right. You can listen, you got an idea floating in my head now. We'll just create a podcast that you have to listen to as you're walking around downtown Nashville. I love it.
This is perfect.
I go to T-Pack right here. This is where I saw Wicked. We always go to the Oak Bar. We always, oh man, I love this place.
All the places, all the wonderful places. One question I didn't get a chance to talk to you about is music, because to me, so much of what I think of when I think of fun is either a certain song is on in the background, or I'm going to see a live concert, or I'm helping promote a friend that just put out new music. So what is it about music for you that really sparks fun? And what are some songs that you have on repeat that are like instant mood boosters?
Oh man, anything Taylor Swift will get me going. I just love her. If we're going to have fun, I'm going to put on Taylor Swift. I'm actually, the memory that comes up when you're saying this, when you're talking about this, is going to Station Inn probably a decade ago, just on a Sunday night, and just seeing all the people picking together. There's a festival here, Tin Pan South, where you get to go and hear songwriters, all that kind of stuff. So much of culture is exported from our city. And so when you get to sit at the Bluebird or sit at Station Inn, or, I mean, I've seen Mumford and Sons at Bridgestone, at the Ryman, at War Memorial. I mean, if they'll show up here at a venue, I will show up at said venue. I mean, I will be there. And so it just is, music is kind of the center of our town. I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody who lives here and doesn't, but for those of us who live here, it's about Broadway. Broadway's fun, but it's about so much more than Broadway. It's about your friend who's home from a tour and it was their first time opening for a big act. And so you go and you sit at Virago and you eat sushi and you hear about being an opening act on a major country tour. Or you are in 2020, we had all of our road friends home for the whole year. And so you walk through that with them, and we still have people making incredible music. I think about the guys from Need to Breathe who just keep making good music all through this pandemic. It's that we need people to keep telling us stories and keep giving us hope. And I don't know that anyone does that better than songwriters and performers.
You know, you touch on a lot of stuff in the book that doesn't sound fun. You talk about you really
alert.
You really go deep on a lot of things that you have become much more comfortable with talking about some of the personal stuff that hits, and it hits hard. What's it like when you share that? Because that has to be scary for you, first of all. But then what is the feedback like?
Well, it can be scary. The reality is when I write it the first time, which I wrote, that sounds fun. I started writing in 2019. I finished it in 2020, which was great because as we're living a pandemic, I got to kind of lay the filter of a pandemic over this book and make sure it was still true. Right. And I ended up losing a chapter that I was like, well, this doesn't work when you're in a pandemic, and writing a new one. And so so that means that it's been a year and a half since I started writing it. And even the things I'm writing, I'm going back a little bit farther in my history. So when it comes to telling really personal stories, part of what helps is there's time between when it happened to me and when the reader has it in their hands. There are a lot of people in my real life who know the stories before they come out in a book. And so that helps. It's not like the first time anyone ever hears the story is the first time someone holds a book. These stories that are in That Sounds Fun are really personal, and some of them are deeply painful because I had to figure out how to find fun even when the day was not fun. And so you have to write about that. But I have a good community. I have, our friends and family at Crosspoint Church, my counselor, my friends. I have people who've walked me through these stories, and I have an editor. And the editor would say, we're not going to tell that part of that story. And I'd say, okay, you're right. We don't have to do that. And so having someone else go, hey, that feels too personal. I know you are writing by yourself in your house, and so it can feel not as personal, but that's too personal for the world. Or, hey, Annie, you only started that story. You didn't finish it. So I need you to go more personal here. And so having teams and editor who helped me walk through that, her name's Andrea at Baker Publisher, she was incredible.
See, and that's the thing when you are sharing this and you are opening up to people, when you talk about starting that podcast, girl, I am right. Like, we are right here. We are right here. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to put it out there and we're going to see what happens, and it's fun to be an amateur at something. And you really put the emphasis on being an amateur. Why is that important? Why do people need to have something in their life that they're just an amateur at?
Well, because there's a couple of things we're forced to be professionals at, right? Like, we have to be professionals at our job. The thing you get paid to do, you need to be a pro. You need to be in training. You need to have some sort of knowledge and wisdom and time to back you up. But the majority of things in life, we need to be amateurs at. We don't have to get paid to do it. We don't have to get better at it. We need to give ourselves permission to try some new things and be new at them. The thing that has happened, I don't know when it happened, Kelly, but at some point in the world, maybe it's being a grown up or maybe it's 2021, but at some point in the world, we decided I can only do things that I'm good at because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want anyone to know I'm not perfect. I don't want to fail. And I'd rather not try than fail. And as the grown-ups on the planet right now, what we need to do and need to model is, no, I'm actually going to try that sport I've never done before. And it's okay if I fall down. Or I'm going to try to make this recipe and I don't know how it's going to go. And we will all survive if it's not delicious. And I am going to go to Dollywood, even though I've never been. I'm going to enter into conversations about racial justice, about equality, about our nation, even if I don't know everything. And I'm going to give the person on the other side permission that they might also be a learner. They might also be an amateur. And we're trying to learn together. We've just got to back off the need to be a professional at everything we do and invite each other. Hey, I know you're new at this. You know what's true? Neither you or I, Kelly, have ever done today. We've never done today before. And so things are going to come up today that we don't know how to handle. We have wisdom because we've done some years, but my gracious, this is a brand new day for me. And so I'm an amateur at today, but I'm going to give it my very best. And I want to do that more in a lot of areas of my life.
Well, in knowing that, and I think a lot of us are feeling that way too, especially with 2020, because there was such a pivot. So many of us are doing new things, or we're doing things in a different way, but we're all on a level playing field. It was like 2020 just came in and wiped the chessboard clean and we start over.
Yep.
So being an amateur in 2021, it's fine. We're all amateurs right now.
Yeah, because none of us had ever done what we had to do last year. The oldest to the youngest, we had no idea how to live in a pandemic. And I'm not sure I still have any idea how to live in a pandemic because it changes every day. But we are getting a chance to try some new things, to do some new shows, to create and build and make. And if you will let yourself, that can be really fun.
I think it is definitely a mindset and a shift. You are exactly right. It's all about perspective.
Yes.
One of the things that you talk about in the book that hit home with me personally, but then also I think a lot of people can relate to this, when you went to the ranch and you're out there
Yeah.
and you feel you're on a vacation and you walk in and you feel like the eyes are on you because people now know who you are. You're 8 books in, you've got a successful podcast, you're speaking all over the world. So people know who you are. You had this feeling of, I need to be who they think I am, not being pretentious or trying to put on airs, but there is a difference. There is a difference in between turning it on and then just being you and just being comfortable. How do you make those two things work together in the same space?
I mean, I'm trying, but the same was true when I taught elementary school, right? When I show up, the Miss Downs they're expecting is the Miss Downs I felt pressure to be. It didn't matter if a relationship had just ended, or if someone in my family was sick, or if I was in a bad mood and didn't drink enough coffee or Diet Dr. Pepper that morning. My students expected me to be someone, and so did their parents. And that's okay. The problem isn't when we have expectations of each other. The problem is when you have no space in your life to not be that person. And that's the tension I was feeling. Was when I taught school and was Miss Downs, that was only during the school day. And then I went home and I went to my friends and my family and I was my normal self. Well, this thing had happened where this current job had started being 24/7. And I just was never without makeup. And I didn't want to go to the grocery store after I went to the Y because I didn't want to risk seeing someone who knew who I was and not look my best. And that is what that actually is my insecurity saying, if they really knew, right? I mean, how many times do we all have that sentence in our head about anything? If they really knew, they wouldn't like me. And they wouldn't want me to be in their lives, and they wouldn't cheer for me, and they wouldn't buy the book or whatever. They wouldn't listen to the podcast. And so going to the ranch, what I wrote about in the book, going to Lost Valley Ranch out in Colorado, I just had to have this like come to Jesus kind of meeting with myself about, why are you always what's the insecurity that's keeping you made up all the time and on all the time? And I had to wrestle that down.
Do you feel when you share the unmade up you and when you post those pictures that you get more interesting comments and more feedback?
It's the worst. Yes.
It's crazy.
It's so frustrating.
It's frustrating, right? But I will tell you the moments, girl, that I have done something that I thought, okay, that was crazy and I probably should take that down. It always gets the most traction and I get more people later on that come back and go, "Oh, you're just like me." Like, I have on fuzzy, I have on fuzzy slippers right now. This is
exactly.
it.
Just showed on Instagram how messy my bathroom is. And I was just like, hey, in the middle of a busy week, you should know. And people, didn't believe me. They were like, I didn't know there was a counter under all that stuff, which I appreciate. I thought was very funny. But I put it out there and go like, this is so vulnerable. Oh, what a vulnerable moment. I was just like, here's my counter. Sorry. Like, I'm doing the best I can. And people over and over, there were these comments of like, me too, me too, me too. And that's my favorite part of what I get to do with my life right now is over and over especially through That Sounds Fun, the book. I got to say to people, that thing you saw up here when you were following along on Instagram, or you saw me at church, or you were reading or listening to the podcast, here's what was going on down here. Here's what was going on behind the scenes that I didn't have the language or the tools or the courage to talk about at the time. And people are always thankful when you go first. And I'm thankful when other people go first for me. And so I love that the book gets to do that for people.
So very good. Okay, last question. What sounds fun to you?
Oh, Kelly. Well, how did this go by so quickly? What sounds fun to me today? Well, it's about to be the weekend for us as we're filming this. And I got a new alarm clock. This is so dumb, but I'm judging my own fun, and you do not have to judge your fun. I'm literally doing the thing I tell people not to do all the time. There is nothing dumb about this. If it feels fun to me, it is fun. The alarm clock, you can set different sounds for different days. I'm not married yet. I don't have kids yet, so I don't have anyone else in my room. But I don't like having my phone by my bed. I feel like that hasn't led to good sleep, and it's not a good habit. So I have an alarm clock. My phone is across the room. Okay, so this tomorrow morning, for the first time, there's a sound of the forest in like Iceland is the sound that's going to wake me up tomorrow morning, and I've never heard it, and I'm so excited. So that sounds fun to me, that I have a brand new alarm tomorrow morning that I've never heard before. That's an Icelandic forest, and so I can't wait. The weekdays, of course, it's an alarm, so I get out of bed. But tomorrow I get to sleep in, and so I'm still setting an alarm so that I don't sleep till 4 p.m. But it's going to sound like an Icelandic forest.
I cannot wait. I want you to post about it. I want to hear it now. You have to share the sound, because now
I will.
My mind is absolutely racing about like, what could that even sound like?
I know. How does that sound different than any other forest? I don't know. I can tell you after Saturday morning though.
It's going to sound magical, and I can't wait to hear all of the wonderful things about it. Is there anything else that you really want to share about the book that people need to know? I mean, truly, I thoroughly had so much fun reading it, and it's such an inside look at everything that's going on with you, but also extremely relatable. I mean, honestly, every page, I'm like, yes.
You've done a really kind job of asking me questions that have been so fun to answer. It's such a joy to put out a book like this that brings people reality and some hard moments, but it's really fun to share. And so thank you for letting me do that.
Who is a dream guest for you on your podcast?
Oh, Dolly Parton, Dolly, Reba, Jimmy Fallon. Those are my top 3 that I'm dreaming for.
That's amazing. But you were there when she did the Lifetime movie, or the Hallmark movie, I should say.
Yes, I've been in the same air as her. That's all I can say so far. I've only shared air with her. I've not shared microphones or rooms or table, but we did breathe the same air probably outside at Dollywood.
Girl, thank you so much. It was so much fun talking to you. Mwah! Love it. Annie F. Downs, everybody. And the name of the book is That Sounds Fun. It's also the name of the podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed to it. She puts out 2 episodes a week, and they are always so much fun to listen to. I would love to hear who you would like to see on Connected with Kelly. Put it below in the comments. While you're down there, make sure that you hit subscribe and the little bell that will notify you when new episodes get released. Until then, make sure that you're staying connected with all the people and things you love the most. Bye.